When you think about the story of Abraham, what's the first word that comes to mind? For most of us, it's probably faith, but a really fascinating commentary on Hebrews chapter 11 suggests that maybe we've been focusing on the wrong thing. What if the story isn't just about what Abraham believed, but about what he actually did?
So let's just dive right in. What does faith really mean? Is it just a feeling you have? Is it mentally agreeing to a list of facts? Well, the commentary we're digging into today really challenges that whole idea, arguing that the Bible itself defines faith through action.
And this right here is the absolute core of the argument. You've got the common view on one side, faith is a state of mind, a belief. But this commentary argues that for the author of Hebrews, faith is way more active than that. It's an act of radical, all-in obedience.
So let's start there. The big idea here is that for Abraham, obedience wasn't just a side effect of his faith. According to the reading of Hebrews 11, it is his faith. It's the single most defining thing about him in this chapter.
And you know, the text itself kind of screams this at you. This commentary points out that in the original language, the word obeyed is pushed right up to the front of the sentence for emphasis. The author of Hebrews wants you to see it right away. Abraham's faith kicks off with an action.
So let's just call it what the source material calls it: faith obedience. It's this powerful idea of acting on God's command even when you can't see the whole roadmap. It's trusting the one who called you more than you trust your own ability to figure it all out.
So, where does the story of obedience really begin? Well, according to this commentary, the place we usually think the story starts isn't the actual beginning at all.
And this is such an important question. Most of us, we open up Genesis 12 and we see God telling Abram to leave the city of Haran, and we think, okay, this is it. This is where the journey starts. But what if that wasn't the first time God called him? What if there was an earlier call that changes everything?
So check this out. There were actually two stages. According to the book of Acts, the very first call happened when Abraham was living back in Ur. But what happened? His father, Terah, started the journey with him, but then they stopped halfway in a city called Haran. So Abraham's obedience was incomplete. It was delayed. It was only after his father died that God called him a second time, and that's when he finally obeyed fully and entered the promised land.
So why does that first call from Ur matter so much? Because it shows us God didn't choose Abraham because he was some super righteous guy. Not at all. A key point from the book of Joshua makes it clear that his family were idol worshippers. God called him out of that life, not based on his merit, but purely out of grace.
And this verse from Nehemiah just drives the point home. It was God who chose. It was God who brought him out. The whole thing was God's idea from the start. Abraham's role in the story, it was simply to obey. And this obedience wasn't just a one-and-done deal. It completely redefined Abraham's entire way of life. And the most powerful symbol of this was where he chose to live.
First, you got to picture what he left behind. Ur of the Chaldeans wasn't some sleepy little village. I mean, archaeology shows us it was a sophisticated, thriving city, a center of culture, wealth, and security.
And he traded all of that for a tent. Just let that sink in. To the rest of the world, this would have looked like a massive step down. He went from being a settled citizen to a homeless wanderer, a stranger in a foreign land.
And the symbolism here is just everything. A city represents permanence, stability, foundations. A tent is the total opposite. It's temporary, it's mobile, it's the home of a stranger. He gave up a physical city built by men because he was looking for a spiritual one built by God.
The commentary points to another really critical detail from Genesis. Every time Abraham pitches his tent, what else does he do? He builds an altar. The two are always together. The physical act of being a stranger, the tent, is directly tied to the spiritual act of worship, the altar. It's a powerful picture. For Abraham, true worship required a real separation from the world around him.
Now, to really understand how radical Abraham's faith obedience was, the commentary gives us a perfect foil. What does the opposite look like? What happens when you walk by sight, not by faith? For that, we just have to look at his nephew, Lot.
And Lot's story is such a cautionary tale about a slow decline. See, he didn't just wake up one day and decide to move to Sodom. It was a step-by-step process. First, he just saw that the land looked good. Then he chose it for himself. Then he pitched his tent toward the city, not in it, just near it. Soon enough, he's dwelling in Sodom. And before you know it, he's a city leader, a citizen sitting in the gate. It's a textbook case of gradual compromise.
Okay, let's zoom out from Abraham's personal story for a minute. This analysis makes a really surprising point about the actual design of Hebrews 11 itself.
You know, we often call this the Hall of Faith, and we kind of picture it as a random gallery of spiritual heroes. But this commentary argues it's something far more intentional, that it's a perfectly symmetrical structure where stories are paired together on purpose to make a point.
So here's a simplified look at that structure. At the beginning and end, sections A and A', the theme is faith concerning God. But look at the middle. Section B, Abraham's story, is all about faith's obedience. And what's it paired with? Section B', the story of Israel at the Red Sea. And it suddenly clicks. Both were about obeying a seemingly impossible command. God told Abraham to go out, and he told Israel to go forward, straight into the sea. The very structure of the chapter reinforces the theme of obedience.
Which brings us to the final and most important question. If Abraham's life was defined by leaving a city and living like a wanderer, what was his ultimate destination? What was the hope that fueled this incredible journey of obedience?
We get an absolutely profound clue from Jesus himself. He says that Abraham saw my day and was glad. This tells us Abraham wasn't just hoping for a plot of land. His vision was fixed on something much bigger. He saw from a great distance the coming of the Messiah, and that vision filled him with joy.
And this is the knockout verse. This is the why behind it all. Abraham could endure living in a temporary, foundationless tent because his eyes were fixed on the permanent, divinely built city. His hope wasn't in the past, in the city of Ur that he'd left behind. His hope was in the future, in the city of God that he'd been promised. His faith obedience was fueled by an eternal hope.
In the end, this whole story boils down to a fundamental choice, the choice between the temporary tent and the permanent city, between the world built by man and the one whose architect and builder is God. And that leaves us with a pretty challenging final thought. What does that choice look like for us today?